And we now want to get into our big discussion of the morning. Many thanks for staying with us. Remember, you can weigh in on this conversation. 22422 is the SMS line. Hashtag is Daybreak. And this morning we are asking you, what has been the biggest impact of the handshake so far in your view after 3 years on this third anniversary of the handshake? We'll put that question up. Remember, you can weigh in, send your SMSs to 22422 and the hashtag is Daybreak. Let me introduce my guest who will be helping us to analyze this. Joining us virtually is Daisy Amdany with the Linda Katiba Initiative. And she'll be joining us virtually. While here with us in studio is Honorable Gladys Wanga, the woman representative for Homa Bay. We will also be joined by Richard Onyonka, Member of Parliament for Kitutu Chache as well. To both of you, thank you so much for making time for us. And Honorable Wanga, maybe I'll start with you. Biggest impact of the handshake on this third anniversary, in your view?
I think bringing back Kenya to the right path, the political stability that we enjoy, the calm and peace that the Kenyans enjoy. Kenyans have been able to go about their day-to-day business without interruption of high-pitch, high-fever politics. And I think that, if you look, Wahiga, at where we were before March 2018 and where we went after that, the difference is like day and night. This country was on the verge of slipping out. You know, we were on the verge of falling off a cliff because everybody held on to very, very tough political positions. And we got out of that. And Kenyans can now walk anywhere, you know, just without worrying about, you know, going to which corner of this country. So for me, the way I see it is how people were, you know, people are unable now to hide behind their political affiliations, you know, on issues. But people now have to discuss issues as they are on the table. So for me, the biggest impact, the political stability that this country now enjoys. Okay.
Let me also allow Daisy Amdany to give that opening statement. 3 years into the handshake, Daisy, biggest impact in your view?
I think there's no denying that Kenya was not at a very good place by the time the handshake was, taking place. And it brought a measure of stability, or what we call peace. However, there's been a downside to it. The downside we've seen is that the opposition has been subsumed. And there is no opposition voice. We have seen massive levels of corruption increased. Contrary to what Mheshimiwa says, we have seen an increase in political intolerance because any criticism that may be leveled against anything to do with handshake and its various products is not tolerated. So we are seeing a regression into the Kenya of even post pre-2010, we're seeing a Kenya of the 1980s where political dissent is not tolerated, where dissenting voices are snuffed out. We're seeing political intolerance, which we witnessed in the recent by-elections. So we're really, we're seeing a leadership that is not accountable and that is not being held accountable. So for me, when we look at the impact, look at Kenya today, while there may have been now what we call an apparent peace because the protagonists shook hands, we've seen leadership that Parliament has failed to hold accountable. Mm-hmm. There is no oversight. We are in an economic crisis, debt crisis, and there is no move towards addressing the challenges that face the people. We are more concerned with pacifying political egos than we are at addressing the plight of Kenyan citizens. So I don't think that the state of the nation is good. Okay. In fact, I think we're in a more precarious situation.
Let me ask you this, Daisy. You're part of a movement that is opposing the amending of the 2010 Constitution. And we haven't had much from Linda Katiba since Super Tuesday, a day when many county governments passed that BBI constitutional bill. Let me understand where the Linda Katiba initiative is today, because I know, and I think you have a presser later on. What are the concerns of Linda Katiba today?
Our concerns remain the same. Our concerns are that our country is sliding back into what we call the dark days of dictatorship. Actually, we seem to have slidden fully into dictatorship. We have seen the level of intolerance, the partisan nature of our security agencies. We have seen as the state ram down its will on the people. People have been talking about, you call it Super Tuesday, but the media has failed to interrogate the manner in which that so-called Super Tuesday came about. How county assemblies and members of county assemblies have been intimidated, making a mockery of the constitutional principle of devolution and the right for county assemblies to self-determination, where county assemblies have been told essentially, you will pass this thing or you will pass this thing. If not, you will have trouble coming your way. We saw Baringo County being tear-gassed for saying no. And the media is not highlighting this. So you know, you talk about a
Daisy,
Super Tuesday.
no, we did highlight it. In fact, I remember on that day the news gang had quite...
I'm talking about the highlighting of the intimidation of county assemblies. Has the media bothered to interrogate, one, the nature of so-called debates that took place in county assemblies as they passed the BBI bill overwhelmingly? What was the nature of it? Have you actually talked? We've seen some few, MCAs get courage to speak. Are you looking at the repercussions that have met the MCAs that actually expressed their dissent to it? What I'm saying is that we are seeing a state that negates the right of people to have a different opinion and to express that opinion. And that is problematic in a democracy, because democracy is a marketplace of ideas.
Okay, Daisy, hang on there, and I'll give you a chance just to carry on. We also have Honorable Onyonka, and I want to give him a chance to also tell us what he sees as the impact of the Handshake 3 years on. Then, Daisy, I'll come back to you. Honorable Onyonka, welcome to our studio.
Thank you very much.
3 years on, Handshake, its biggest impact in your view, what has that been?
Actually, I respect my sister Daisy quite a bit. I'm only wondering whether we are in the same country and the same place. The reality and the truth is, this country has myriad of problems. This country has issues which frequently make the political class think that maybe we need to reconfigure what to do in terms of trying to make the country more open, make the country more inclusive, make the country more reasonable in terms of resource management, and give it a new direction, if not impetus, so that we can move forward. I don't see why anybody would get upset about the BBI. For the simple reason that one of the issues that you look at in any country, whether it's Kenya or any other African country, is resource allocation and distribution, and therefore resource use. And for me, if the main agenda of BBI is to increase resources of the county governments, to make sure that the county governments have, because the functions which the county governments are supposed to perform are not being performed well enough, for the reason that the county governments and the MCAs and indeed governors are arguing that the resources are not enough to solve the problems at the grassroots, so be it. The process which has been followed, I've heard Daisy say that the MCAs were intimidated and some were... Honestly, you act as if MCAs are children, and you act as if the county governments are basically institutions which don't know what they're doing, and therefore somebody from up above came and with a hammer and they was telling them, if you don't do this, then we're going to blow your heads up. The truth is, even the argument of saying that the government was using the car to bribe the MCAs, members of parliament are given cars for free. So this argument that, oh, you're bribing the MCAs with their cars, so that, no, we're just trying to be fair. Give the MCAs, and after all, MCAs are given cars which are 1.6, maybe 1.
So you saw nothing unusual about CSs in some county assemblies, governors in county assemblies on the day of the vote, for example. That did not raise your curiosity as to exactly what they were doing?
I thought they were curiously sitting there watching what was going on. I mean, how can you intimidate 46? Kisii has got 72 members of the county assembly. Not even one can come out and say, oh, you know, we've been intimidated. The reason why our CS was sitting there, or he saw us. I mean, there's this notion in Kenya that this democracy that we are looking at is a perfect out. Even in America, my brother, Trump, who just got out of there, had been, I mean, the politics is about give and take. When Trump wanted to pass some laws, when he was being impeached, what did you see? How could 50 senators not vote against him when he was being impeached? It's a give and take. So it's not about this utopian idea that, oh, you know, democracy is all clean. It's like you are getting preachers and church people who are talking about goodness. And there's nothing like that. Politics is bare knuckle. The BBI, for some of us, is a good document. It doesn't bring in any contradictory issues to our constitution. Is our constitution perfect? No. Can we improve on it? Yes. If you don't like it, be against it. If you are for it, let's support it. That's what democracy does.
Honorable Wanga looks like she wants to jump in now. Even as you jump in, after the handshake, Kenyans were told that there was a 9-point agenda. So two things happened after the handshake, to the best of Kenya's knowledge about what was discussed in there. That the output was, one, that 9-point agenda, corruption, lack of a national ethos, devolution, divisive elections, etc. I'm sure you know that list offhand. And also the plans to amend the constitution. 3 years later, have the principles and those who are implementing this stayed true to the course, or have we begun to veer off?
Okay, so first,
what's your analysis?
So first let me deal with the issue of the BBI, the issues that were raised by Daisy, who's my friend. She has said that the BBI, the county assemblies were intimidated into passing the BBI. I think nothing could be further from the truth, especially if you followed debate within the county assemblies. If you followed debate within the county assemblies, members of the county assemblies rose in their place to speak about why they were supporting the BBI. And they spoke about increase in devolved resources. Many of the members of the county assemblies said that devolution had hung at the county level. It had not gone further. The MCAs needed to, be friends with governors for them to get development projects into the areas. They spoke about the Ward Development Fund. Women spoke about, the fact that we are now going to achieve gender parity, both in the Senate and in the National Assembly. And Daisy has fought over and over, where we met is when we've been fighting for the 2/3 gender rule. Surely, this is now going to be achieved through the BBI. So I do not see where there is conflict. And even the BBI is lindering the Katiba. We are making sure that the places where the Constitution was hanging, we are now, like the 2/3 gender rule, for example, the Constitution did not provide a formula. Parliament tried to come up with a formula, and it wasn't possible for the last 8 years. So now BBI
concludes... Is it fair to say tried and it wasn't possible, or failed?
I mean, we tried.
Both.
We tried. We tried and failed. Isn't it? Isn't that the point? We tried and failed. And so the Constitution is now landing into a place where it can actually be fully implemented. So the whole tone about Linda Katiba, I think, is off the grid when it comes to BBI. And then coming to the 9-point agenda and whether we are true to the cause. Wahiga, the BBI is in 3 parts. What is to be addressed administratively, what is to be addressed through change of legislation, policy and legislation, and what is to be addressed through constitutional change. So administratively, you're looking at why haven't we implemented the Ndungu report, the TJRC, these have been investigated. These have been looked into and all listed. Then we have spoken about 58 pieces of legislation that we need to amend in order to get us to a place of addressing that 9-point agenda. The BBI bill is one of the many aspects in addressing that 9-point agenda. So the BBI Constitutional Amendment Bill should not be looked at as a standalone. And I know people will say, what is stopping you from implementing these things anyway, even without the BBI? But a country must have a conversation on some of these issues, like we have had through the BBI process. There are some things that slip off, that you need a conversation such as the BBI conversation to bring them back on the table. When the two principles met, they said, where is our country going wrong? And I think the two principles in the handshake have stayed true to their cause of trying to bring this country to a place where we get back onto the rails that should take us forward. When we come to, issues of oversight, and Daisy said the handshake has, taken down oversight. If you look at the 2010 Constitution, oversight is not a responsibility of any given party. The entirety, Parliament is in its entirety, is expected to oversight the executive. And that is why we no longer have leader of official opposition as a title in Parliament. We have the leader of minority and the leader of majority, because the Parliament in its entirety is meant to actually oversight the executive. Soon after the handshake, for the first time in the history of this country, we saw sitting cabinet secretaries being arraigned in court. Because there was no longer the fear that if I do this, the opposition is going to be, clapping. The fear went, and the president was emboldened in his fight against corruption. Okay. Those are truths that we must say. Even if you oppose, you must admit that there are certain truths that are on the table that must be spoken to.
Daisy, come in before we begin to analyze this 9-point agenda. I don't know if you have any response.
Wahiga, I don't think any of us is a visitor in Jerusalem, just to use that phrase. You talk about the gender principle. The gender principle has been in the Constitution, and they have essentially refused to implement it, even where there is no legislation required. In the cabinet, the same Parliament that vets cabinet secretaries vetted lists that did not meet the 2/3 gender principle. How is that going to change? By putting it in, telling us that the BBI now has the top up. The mechanism that is being proposed in the BBI is the exact same mechanism that was in the Duale bill, which Parliament failed to pass. It is not that they were defeated to pass. It is that they deliberately refused to pass it. So now they are telling us they are going to pass it. They have put a sunset clause. Sunset clause means after some time, those mechanisms will not be there anymore. That in itself is in contravention of Article 27(8), which requires that in perpetuity, we shall never have more than 2/3 of the same gender in any elective or appointed offices. BBI does not address itself to that. Women have been removed. The 47 women of whom Gladys Wanga is a beneficiary have been removed from the National Assembly and been taken to the Senate. Remember, the National Assembly debates money bills. All money bills are introduced in the National Assembly, the national budget and all that. So women have been removed from substantive parliamentary business. And there's even a play of words when you look at the way the BBI frames the 2/3 gender principle. It talks about not more than 2/3 shall be the special seat members necessary to ensure not more than 2/3 in Parliament, not even in the National Assembly, so collectively. So they will add up the numbers in the Senate and the National Assembly to give us the 2/3. They're increasing the number of Parliament. One of the reasons why they said they were not going to pass the 2/3 gender principle was because they talked about this wage bill, a wage bill that was going to weigh people down. The BPI not only increases the numbers exponentially, it goes on to expand the executive. So what happened to the wage bill? Let's talk about this oversight. Right now, as we speak, Kenya is running serious budgetary deficits. We are in an economic crisis. The members of parliament there are not telling you that even them, you heard them saying that they were not going to pass the supplementary budget because what would have been 100 million from the national government CDF. Right now, the government doesn't have money. This administration has been running deficits, budgetary deficits for 8 years, and it is all coming to a head. We have a debt bill of 1 trillion shillings. So even this 35% that they are telling people is going to come to the counties, where is that money going to come from? When right now we're not even able to meet our obligations with the minimum 15%. What I'm saying here, Waihiga, is that our political class is being extremely dishonest. They are selling a bogus bill of goodies to Kenyans that they know full well they are not even able to deliver right now. If indeed, as Honorable Martha Karua has said repeatedly, if indeed they want to increase the budgetary allocation to the counties at 35%, we are currently in the budget making process. Let them put it in the budget now. Let them not tell people to look for a future. Let them do it now. As for the Ward Development Fund, already we have county assemblies that have passed under the principles of equitable distribution. They have passed bills in their counties to allow for the Ward Development Fund. We have about 15 counties that have done that. So you don't need to amend the constitution for that. County assemblies have the right to self-determination, and they are able to pass bills that allow them to access resources the same way that CDF was created under the former constitutional order that allowed for CDF to become a reality for the constituencies. So all these things that we are being told about that are going to happen, we have never seen more corruption under the BBI than we have, before BBI, as we have seen under the BBI. COVID, theft of funds, no oversight. Nobody is being brought to book Nene for the theft of COVID funds. We're in the midst of a pandemic, a serious pandemic. Nobody is addressing that.
Let me get a response.
Unemployment, nobody is addressing that. So how is the BBI going to help to address the pressing issue of Kenyans? Not to create positions for leaders, but address the pertinent issues affecting Kenyans, because that is the role of leadership.
Daisy, hang on there. Honorable Nyonka, I've been told I need to take a break, but let me allow you to respond before we do that. Go ahead.
Yes, I'll be very quick, Waigwa. Madam Daisy is talking about Ward Development Fund, and that some counties have already actually implemented it. It's deemed illegal. Even CDF, as we talk right now, has been interpreted by the Supreme Court, where they have said they do not believe that CDF as a fund should be allowed to run the way it's running. When you look at the issue of the women reps that we have removed the 47 women reps, the truth is, why would you have a woman who is seeking leadership in the county, campaign within, like in Kisii, campaign within 9 constituencies, and all she does is taken back to parliament, and she goes and becomes just like me, who campaigns in 1 constituency? She should have mercy on those ladies who are campaigning in 9 constituencies. We are making it impossible for a woman to actually get leadership. When parliament refused to pass the gender parity law, it wasn't because, like she's putting it out there, that we were defeated. No, ladies like Gladys Wanga really tried to maneuver, really tried to persuade the male and the men leaders, including their fellow women, so that we could pass the bill. It failed because leaders sometimes disagree on certain basic issues. And therefore, the best way you can do is actually take a different approach to try and make sure that you achieve this equity and parity and gender parity. Look at the debt we have got right now. And I want to correct her because I'm in the budget committee. Our debt is 9 trillion shillings. That has not been brought about because of BBI. In fact, BBI started raising issues about our debt. Prime Minister
I think she was questioning more of, should BBI should that be our focus? Taming this debt.
How do you change that?
Should the referendum be a priority?
How do you change the mess we are in? Look at where we are in. How is
BBI addressing the debt?
Where we are today, if you look at the amount of money that is supposed to be used for handling the referendum that is coming, if you look at the quote-unquote number of seats that she's talking about that we are creating for ourselves, the truth is, what is supposed to be there? prime minister, deputy prime ministers, and all these other positions. They already exist anyway. As a majority leader, deputy majority leader, those are positions which you shift to this side. The only reason why we have increased the number of members of parliament coming to the House is because some areas were left out. I mean, you have a constituency like when we were in a place called Kabuchai, you have a constituency which has got 198,000 people and they've got 1 MP. And yet you have certain areas where there are 50 to 60,000 registered voters and they have only 1 MP. We must have equity.
Hang on, Daisy. Let him finish.
We must have equity. And for us to change the number of constituencies that we are going to have, this is not anything that was drafted by Uhuru and Raila, and they just came and told Kenyans, have this. There were hearings. I don't know whether Daisy went for those hearings. Did she make a presentation? Did they disagree at the time when these hearings were being held? There were public hearings. We went there. Different political parties went there. Different individuals went there. And all this has been being discussed from the point of view that BBI is not meant to be a winner-take-it-all. It's supposed to be, if you can have a consensus, so be it. But because of the political expediency you have in this country, some people will not want to have it. And some of us, what we are saying is very simple.
Okay.
The truth is, our country has certain issues which you must change. We can't have a government where all the leaders of the opposition are kicked out of government, are kicked out of parliament, when you have 2 leaders who win this office, and then you have Raila, Musalia, Weta, Kalonzo Musyoka, leaders of the opposition. They are just street vendors, doing nothing.
I thought, what about Kenyans?
I mean, what they are, these are representatives of Kenyans. Raila was voted for close to 6 million people.
Let me see.
And then you just take him out of where he can play a reasonable role. And then when he's coming out and trying to negotiate with Uhuru, and truthfully, there are certain issues which have been raised and we have talked about them.
Okay.
But the truth is, this is a leader who was elected by Kenyans. Kalonzo Musyoka is elected by Kenyans. Musalia is elected by Kenyans. After the elections, what do? You tell them to leave, and you have 2 individuals who have been ruling this country for 10 years, and then when you have issues about debt, about mismanagement of this country, then you start accusing the opposition as having created the problem.
Okay, Honorable Wanga, because I don't want to interrupt you, allow me to take that break, come back, and you get first take. And Daisy, hang in there. I'll give you a chance to respond as well. And I'm seeing a lot of your feedback. Remember, this morning we're asking you, 3 years in, what has been the impact of the handshake? 22422 is the SMS line. Hashtag is Daybreak. Engineer Lazaro Kanyambok says handshake has brought peace and stability that enabled President Kenyatta to maneuver through hardship and huge debts without strong dissenting voices. Okay. Even loans are just coming because of peace and stability we're enjoying currently. I don't know if he means that tongue-in-cheek or that is his strong view. Jacob Abere Matlala Israel says, 3 years handshake scorecard has brought in political stability in some quarters. Citizens have enjoyed peace. Also, on the other side, it has brought in political unhappiness if one doesn't toe the line. Keep sending your messages in and we will read them. You're watching Daybreak. Stay with us. We'll be right back.